Hello!
Hello!
Welcome to Next Level Play.
Your best source for all things gaming.
Yeah.
What do we talk about, Marcus?
Oh, we talk not just about gaming.
Yeah.
We talk about esports, all right? We talk about movies. We make bold predictions for things we see in the industry.
We wear silly little glasses and outfits.
What's up with this? Why?
Happy New Year!
Our director wanted us, I feel...
Stick around. We have a wonderful guest coming on today. We're going to be talking about music in video games.
Yes.
Possibly one of my favorite topics. We got so much more to come, so stay tuned. We are your best source for all things gaming.
Yeah, the future of esports is right here.
Right now.
Next Level Play. All right, now that these sunglasses are off and I can see your face, you got a haircut. You got them all cut.
I got them. You didn't even let me make my own joke.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Set me up. Hold on. Okay, go.
Sydney.
Who, me?
Yes. Did you get a haircut?
Why, Marcus, yes, I did. In fact, I got them all cut.
What?
We're having fun.
Yes. I'm sorry. That's my joke. I thought maybe you had a different haircut joke.
No, is there another one?
I don't know. That's the one I pull that one out every chance I get.
Quintessential dad
I
joke.
thought I came up with that.
Oh, every dad does.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm a cat dad. No, that doesn't count.
You're a cat dad.
That doesn't count.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
It's a Friday here in the studio. So,
yeah.
No, wait, no.
It's not even fucking close.
Thursday.
Jesus
I was about to say Happy
Christ.
Friday.
Yeah, I'm on the right amount of non-sleep,
Okay.
aka awake.
Uh-huh.
What? I didn't sleep a lot last night, but I'm feeling good. One of those, I'm nice and slap happy.
Yeah.
Feel free to slap me across the face at any point in time.
All right.
That is
Careful what you wish
A
for.
lifetime
Promise? I can do
ticket.
it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One free slap.
I mean, unless it's like a lame slap and then you can get another one. But if it's a really good one, then I'm going to learn my lesson.
Okay.
Only Sydney.
No, this is not an open invite. It's just for me.
And you.
Whoa.
What are we talking about today, Sydney?
Okay, so we're talking a lot about music today. Music and video games. We have a wonderful guest coming on, Chase Bethea. Hope I'm saying that right.
Like Beethoven.
You should make that joke to him.
Should I?
No. He'll be on later today in the episode. He is a musical composer and has created soundtracks for some wonderful, wonderful video games. I cannot wait to learn all about everything he does, all about composition for video games. I've always been so interested and so curious because personally I feel like the music in video games is so the sound design as a whole is so crucial, and I love Foley work. Obviously, we're both voiceover artists. We love doing VO work, but like creating a custom soundtrack to a video game, it must be such a cool experience. Like talking to the director and just having them be like, here's the vibe,
right?
You know, or showing you clips or like even just pictures. And they're like, here's this character, you know, what do you think the theme song would be?
Sure. And it adds so much character and can make or break a video game, I feel like.
Well, it's
a lot
also
of the
like,
time.
We latch on to things as humans, and a lot of it is sense memory, you know, and you'll latch on to the sound. So every time, you know, you get a high score, you know, the ding or the jingle that happens when that happens, or
it's a little dopamine hit.
Yeah. Or like a new level or a character that you have a theme song that you're so familiar with. And I was wondering, do you have a favorite genre of music that you listen to, or are you all over the place?
I was gonna ask you who your favorite musicians are. In the similar vein of my great joke from earlier in the episode, play it back. You got a haircut. You got them all cut. Yeah, I love dad rock.
I knew you were gonna say.
I do. I can't help it. It's what I grew up with.
What do you consider, like the Eagles?
I mean, that's like quintessential.
Yeah.
Dad, like Eagles and Foreigner.
Is that what you mean, though?
I personally go even a little. I just mean classic rock for the most part.
Nickelback.
That is getting to the point of dad rock at this point.
I love Nickelback.
I think, like, if you turn on a classic rock station nowadays, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers will play. Sublime is still a little too alternative. You know, it's only for us cool ska fans out there. No, but I'm a classic rock guy in general. Honestly, the music I really like goes even before my parents' time or like their early childhood. I love the Beatles. Beatles are my favorite band. I own every original Beatles album, not the original, you know what I mean. But they're British albums. Their full discography, if that's what you'll say. I love The Who. My brother was a big Led Zeppelin guy, so it's kind of more his thing. And I lean more into like the folky kind of. I love Simon and Garfunkel. When I first moved to New York, that's all I played in my head for like a year and a half.
Do you like Fleet Foxes?
Fleet Foxes.
They're
I
like
Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, Fleetwood Mac is great. Fleet Foxes is like a modern band, but they have this sort of folky sound. It sounds like they could have come out of the 70s.
Yeah.
I feel like you would like them.
I probably would, but I love those classic rock and roll bands. And then I also like certain pop music, 80s pop. Michael Jackson's great. I really love Michael Jackson music. And then 90s alternative, like I was kind of talking about before. I love Sublime. Cake is great. That's early 2000s as well.
It almost matches up with your video game tastes of loving retro games. I feel like your music also aligns where you like the classics.
I do. I mean, it's the test of time.
Not like the classics like Beethoven. Or do you? Do you like classical music?
Not really.
No, not really. Okay.
No, I mean, I try. I respect it. I was in choir growing up, so I did a lot of Handel.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah. So that's me. I'm not a huge music guy. I'll tell people first and foremost, especially living in New York. Everyone's, people will judge you based on your favorite band and what you're listening to.
Of course.
And that's just not me. I'm the pretentious film guy. So I watch all the obscure movies.
Know your place.
I know my place. And I understand my limits of music. Anything made really within my lifetime, or at least the last 20 years, I am fully aware that I'm very ignorant towards. And I'm okay with that. What about you, Sydney?
I feel like I go all over. I don't have a genre that I really hone in on, though I do think I listen more to alternative rock.
Okay.
A lot of modern rock bands I really love. There's a band called Land of Talk. They're out of Canada, female lead singer and guitarist, Elizabeth Powell. She's amazing.
Cool.
I listen to a lot of like, melancholy, I guess, sad girl music, which is what I like. It's
Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn, and it's what I write as a musician as well.
Okay.
I have an album out. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Did you?
You did mention it, and I did clock it. Did I forget about it during this conversation
that's
until
okay.
just now? Yes.
If you want to listen to it, it's called The People Person. That's the moniker, and it's a self-titled album. But it's that same genre of like, well, thanks.
That's
but
amazing.
I write that because I listen to that, so it's like melancholic guitar, full band, kind of rock, sad rock.
I love that.
But when I'm not listening to inherently sad music, I do also really love PC music, which is sort of a new genre in like the pop umbrella. There's A.G. Cook, who is really, really popular.
And it doesn't offend anyone, right?
Yes. No, it doesn't offend anyone. It's super, super on the level.
Great.
But no, it's like it's this kind of pop that is like beepy boopy. It's computer, like it's it's like a lot
the
of
SpongeBob song.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's a lot of like arpeggiators and stuff.
Sure.
And I never thought of myself as like a pop music person, but I definitely, this pendulum has swung where I'm just like, pop music slaps.
Yeah.
Like, Charlie XCX put out a new album this year, and it's all beepy boopy,
sure,
super fine-tuned vocals and stuff, but I like that as well. I'll dip into country.
Okay.
I love Fleetwood Mac. Who doesn't? I'll dip into the classics too.
Of course.
But yeah, I feel like I go all over, but I will say, I have listened to and I'm not like an album person. I'm a bad music listener. I don't always listen to a full album.
Albums are kind of going.
Depends on who you talk to.
I know, but like
some people like only listen to full albums to judge.
Yeah,
which is good.
And I get it. I get it. But also like the format of that had to do with the size of records, and like that doesn't
times
exist
are changing
anymore. Yeah, like.
But I do listen to full soundtracks of video games.
Yes,
because I find the music in video games so, one, nostalgic, two, can be so soothing. There's one in particular that maybe you would guess if given the time, but I don't think we have the time.
Kingdom Hearts.
No, although it's so good, but no. The soundtracks to all of the Sims games. There is
really?
Sims 2 is probably the most iconic, I would say, for people that like to listen to the Sims music soundtracks. And I'm not talking about the Simlish songs.
I was gonna say, is this just like Simish or Simlish?
The Simlish songs
music form
in game are great. There's
notes that you don't really recognize that don't exist, but they do.
Yes, like they all those pop stars, like Shakira did a Simlish song.
What?
I think Good Charlotte did. Katy Perry. Katy Perry's is like Zuba di bali bada di mani ngani mana.
Is that any different from a regular Katy Perry song?
Oh, Katy Perry fans are mad. But not the Simlish songs. I'm talking about the soundtracks that were composed for the game. So
Mm-hmm.
like when you go into build mode or buy mode, it's this beautiful jazzy piano music in Sims 2.
Okay.
Then there's the class. You've probably heard this one that's like boop 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 boop
I think
boop
so.
boop boop boop.
I didn't think Sims came up with it.
I'm
Is
doing
that?
a really good job.
Yeah, I think I can hear it in my head.
And then like build mode has this like jazzy like
Wait, what is it like?
You'd have to listen to it, but truly like throw it on when you're studying, throw it on when you're in the car, throw it on
Okay.
when you're cleaning your house. And then when you get into Sims 4, Sims 3, it's poppier. It's
Okay.
like, I don't know. It's just, to me, the Sims soundtracks are so incredible. It's
Yeah.
just truly just incredibly composed piano pieces and music.
Sure.
But to me, it's so iconic. And for those who know, it's like, I don't know, you just like make eye contact. Like if somebody played it, 5 people in the room turn to each other and it's all just like, oh, it's on. Oh, we all know.
Based on your description, I have some elevators I'd like you to check out.
Okay, it's hey, it's careful. Careful. Oh, you gave me one free slap. But that one comes to mind. But then there's so many other games that I think of that are so different. Like not
Sure.
piano music, you know, like these like Skyrim. Just
Yeah.
these like orchestral battle music and these dragons in the sky when the dragon appears.
They got straight up orchestras playing that.
Yeah, it's super orchestral. It's like strings and drums. But do you have I know you're not a huge music guy, but I feel like are there some video games where the soundtrack just
Definitely
in the brain?
Yeah, and it's song like as a kid, that was the music that I guess I associated with the most. Probably because again, we didn't have. I think I had Now That's What I Call Music, Volume 4.
So many of those
Yeah,
CDs.
and one of those cheap Walkman, like late '90s, early 2000s CD players that you could get for like $15 type of thing.
Yep.
So I loved video games because they could kind of pop in my video game and listen to the music that I wanted to, and it goes back all the way to really the NES, which is the first console I played. But Tetris,
What's the
incredible
soundtrack
music.
to Tetris like?
Well, there's 3 songs, but it's all like classic. I think Russian.
Beep and Boop. Oh.
Yeah. Do 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 do
Oh,
do 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 do. And then there's the each version of Tetris, the official Nintendo one and then the Tengen one, they both have their own song, but they're both amazing. The Nintendo based one, there's 3 different songs. They're all great. It's great, and it really just makes you into the trance. And I don't know. Nowadays, I turn down the volume on half the video games I play and listen to like a podcast or something because ADD and I'm in a world where I
must be overstimulated at all times.
Exactly, and I'm more of a mindless kind of video game kind of. But when a music, the thing with video games is you're going to be listening to the song again and again and again and again, most likely.
Yeah.
So it really is. It's about replayability, I feel, more than anything to make a truly great video game song. I don't know. Maybe that's just my weird hot take, but especially with those old NES soundtracks like Legend of Zelda, those songs are classic and timeless, and even chip-tuned and 8-bit sounds incredible. Super Mario Brothers 1 and 3 and 2, they all sound really, really good, and those songs are then remastered and remixed later on. I don't know. You know, I'm so Nintendo biased.
I know, but that's not to say like Mario has some amazing music, and then you even get into like Mario Party or Mario Odyssey, and like it builds on the original themes of Mario, but then freaks it a little bit, which I think is really fun and really cool.
And Legend of Zelda, I think, especially leaned into the music because they took some of those songs. The whole thing is about playing music. Yeah. And it was so popular that, you still have the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
It's so popular, you can buy an ocarina and play it.
Oh, it's still iconic. And Link still gets his instruments and plays his little ditties. And those songs are timeless, and they're being remade again and again and again. Koji Kondo, I mean, it's just a legend. And then Nintendo's kind of third-party but loyal third-party companies also created some of the best music of all time. Rare in particular, going all the way back to Battletoads. The pause music is so catchy. But more importantly, Donkey Kong Country has such a good soundtrack, and those songs are still being remixed and replayed. And then the Nintendo 64 era, I think, has some of the greatest music. Again, like we talked about Ocarina of Time. Banjo-Kazooie has like the most fun, cartoony soundtrack ever. Mario 64, those tracks are just as iconic as Mario 1 and 3 and Mario World. Nintendo, they're like the Paul McCartney of music producers in that they make these simple, catchy little ditties that are simple, but they're complex in their simplicity, and they're infinitely replayable, and they're I don't know. It's the master of simple, catchy tunes. Metroid has a great soundtrack. F-Zero has a great soundtrack. I remember just listening to F-Zero soundtrack and not even knowing anything about F-Zero, just through Super Smash Bros. Melee. And then, oh my goodness, that Zelda stage with the big old stage in Melee. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
anyway, it has the best song in the entire game, and that's the dungeon theme from Zelda 2 Adventure of Link that nobody even knew about. Anyway.
But that's what's great too, is like different levels and like different areas on maps will have different music, obviously. And I just remember as a kid, the thing that's so nostalgic is when you are in a safe area, you know, there's a certain theme song that comes on. And when you start getting into a dangerous area, or the battle music starts to come on, and I would always be like, oh no, oh no. And then you're just like waiting for something to happen. You're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And you just know, you can feel it.
Because music, I mean, anyone who is really into movies as well knows sound design is everything.
Yeah.
It's so subtle, you don't really realize how much it manipulates you, but there's so many edits on YouTube of changing the sound design of a scene, and it just absolutely completely destroys or makes the mood. It really, really does.
Yeah. And now we're getting into sound design too, but it's so true. I love horror games, and a lot of the time there's not music in horror games, which makes it worse, you know, like it makes it scarier.
It's the ambiance.
Yeah, you need something to fill that void because it's really fucking creepy.
Yeah.
And then when music does come in, usually it's not a good thing. Like it comes in, you're like, oh, why is the music playing? Like, oh no.
And that's so funny you say that. I don't know, just another example, but like Doom. The original 2 Dooms have amazing, and a lot of them are ripoffs of classic rock songs and heavy metal songs. Amazing ripping soundtrack. But then Doom 64, I think they got Audrey Hodges. And then with Quake, they went with Trent Reznor.
Yeah.
And with both of those choices, it was much... You'd think these are amazing musicians, you know?
Yeah.
But instead they went with very like ambient, like creepy kind of like soundtracks. And it's very, very effective as you go into kind of more of a 3D kind of feeling and more immersion.
Trent Reznor should do every soundtrack for every like horror game.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I love Trent Reznor. That's another thing, like I wonder if there's a dream combo of, I guess I don't know that many musical composers. It would be difficult for me.
Resident Evil has... are you talking about like combo of
for type of
ambient,
game, or like who would make like Sufjan Stevens would make a really beautiful game like Journey.
Sure,
where you're, you know, these like beautiful landscapes, or even a creepier game like Death Stranding.
Sure.
Sufjan has such a, you know Sufjan, right? No, the fans at home. Sufjan Stevens,
an old man,
really, really amazing musical composer, does a lot.
Sorry.
Chocolate. They're selling chocolate. Anyway, him, Trent Reznor, God, there's just so many wonderful musicians who I would love to see make that venture into more video game work.
Sure.
Just be incredible.
I think the first real kind of crossover was Michael Jackson.
In what game?
Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
No way. Wait.
Long to be rumored, but I think it has been confirmed. It's kind of like with his Simpsons episode where he did voice the character, but then had to say, no, I didn't voice the character, but like secretly he did voice the character during the Michael Jackson guest episode.
Didn't know that.
Happy birthday, Lisa. Anyway, also Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And this one, I'll look it up. Fact checking, who gives it?
Who cares?
But he made the soundtrack for Sonic 3, allegedly.
What?
And they kind of, either he backed out of it through a record deal, this or that, or he wasn't fully happy with, you know, how they used his music because it was chip-tuned, or they didn't want to promote it because it was around the time of the first lawsuit. Something like that. I should fact check that.
So
but yes,
it got swept under.
But Michael Jackson did make the Sonic the 3 soundtrack. Yeah,
I knew that,
which is pretty interesting. And then there's some other things like Spyro the Dragon. I don't know. I'm biased, obviously, but those '90s soundtracks, especially with PS1, you had finally a disc. So
Yeah.
you could put these high quality stereo,
Yeah.
CD quality soundtracks on your games, which almost makes me appreciate Nintendo 64 even more.
For the chiptune stuff?
Yeah, a little bit, because it's still a little video game jank, and
Yeah.
there's an appeal to that. But I'm also an old man, and it's like, I like the creak of my radio.
You know, I will say, though, I feel like a lot of indie games also that sort of lend themselves to be more like 16-bit type games, they've got some really awesome soundtracks that sort of emulate that early NES chiptune.
I mean, chiptune's a thing. People listen to chiptune, and you know, it's not as popular as it is, 15 years ago.
Undertale and Deltarune are like amazing soundtracks for those games.
Yeah. But Spyro the Dragon, the creator of the music was the guy from The Police.
Oh.
He was the drummer. He was either the drummer or the bassist. It's something Copeland. But he made the music for that. And what's more, he also made the music for The Amanda Show. And the closing credits Amanda Show song with the ones like that is like an exact. He basically copy pasted it for one of the levels of Spyro 1. Yeah, like no shame.
This is some Easter egg.
Yeah, well, it's a fun fact. Yeah, and I knew that level and that song obviously as a kid, and I never made the connection. But once I realized it, I was like, oh my god.
I wonder how many musicians have done, like, a one-off video game, or they just wrote for something random that became a song in a video game, or they played on something. I'm sure it happens way more often than you think.
If I was a musician, I'd do it all the time.
Oh my god, I would
change like 2 notes. I own it. Fuck them.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like for some games, they're like intrinsically tied, and like shows as well. I think of the cartoon show Steven Universe, amazing soundtrack, and like they've made some video game stuff, but it just like just blends so perfectly into the game and the show and like themes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I just want to go listen to soundtracks and also just go play like Guitar Hero.
It's effective. I mean, Kingdom Hearts when I was a kid, when the trailer came out, that swelling K-pop song, when I was Simple and Clean, like made me want a PlayStation 2 more than anything in the world, just because it looked like the most epic fucking thing in the world.
I was obsessed with those trailers.
Yeah.
For Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2, because it's all Utada Hikaru, who is the singer of Simple and Clean, and then Sanctuary. Then she did that remix song with Skrillex for Kingdom Hearts 3. Face My Fears. It's actually pretty dope.
Okay. What was that, 2002? Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts 2?
1.
Was
it 2001?
Do you want to look it up, actually? Sure. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because we waited 16 years, and then the third came out.
Well, 2 was 2006, wasn't it?
I don't remember. It's too long ago.
I know.
What does it say?
2002.
Wow, you were right. Okay.
Get with years.
Yeah, Simple and Clean, that...
it's 7 or 8 years old.
Simple and clean is the way that
good ass song.
Me feel.
December 2005.
But see, even the fact that you have such an intrinsic, rent free in the brain. I'm curious how others feel about it. I'm sure people similarly have these nostalgic songs or musical motifs that they just think of in any given moment that are tied to video games.
Yeah.
But we have to move on, even though I definitely want to talk to Chase about this when we interview him. We can't, Marcus. We can't spend all day just talking about
music.
I
know video game music more than most. I don't know.
Well, you can show your knowledge off to Chase when we have more.
I don't. Okay. All right. That's good.
Moving on, though, I wanted to talk about the trailer for Watchmen 1. Did you watch it? Did you Watchmen it?
I did.
I didn't watch it yet, but I did recently finish reading Watchmen, the graphic novel.
Okay.
For the first time ever. And I haven't seen the show, and I haven't seen any movies because I wanted to read the graphic novel before seeing it and making any other judgments. I loved the graphic novel.
Sure.
Yeah, it is classic. So fucking good, and the themes in it are so bonkers. But I am curious about this new animated show now. But now I'm getting into like decision paralysis where I'm like, do I watch the animated show first, or do I watch the show? Should I watch the movie in between the two? How does it look? What do you think?
I mean, it looks good. They're going animated, which again, I'm only knowing, the Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah.
That's my basis for everything.
Zack Snyder is your basis.
Yeah, no, it is though. I mean, that movie came out kind of in the height of superhero movies, right? Like Dark Knight was just a couple years right around that time.
Yeah.
And you know, it was when Marvel was in its prime. I don't think Avengers had come out yet, but
No.
Iron Man had, and they're building up towards that. What it led to, for me, when I think of Watchmen, I think of, oh, this is why the DC universe is what it is, because they took what worked with that, including the director, and were like, we can just make this Superman. Not, I guess, kind of realizing that the whole point of Watchmen is a gritty take on all of that, but there's to have the yin, you have to have the yang.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I like Watchmen. I thought it was a great movie. I didn't watch the show, so I don't really know how close this is. This is embarrassing. Was the Watchmen show animated?
No, it was live action. So now they're doing this animated show, which I assume, though, I mean, Watchmen is not for children. It is a graphic novel full of adult concepts.
Oh, of course,
and some like really brutal shit happens.
It's as adults as it gets.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm curious with this animated series, you know, obviously I assume it's geared toward adults.
Yeah. Again, it was news to me that there even was a Watchmen show, which is sad.
We learn something new every day.
Which is sad. I'm not a huge superhero guy.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, but I'm honestly just kind of surprised that a market for this exists. I feel like The Boys fills this kind of, again, it's not animated, and just comparing apples to oranges isn't fair, but when you're going for an adult kind of superhero take, the really intense, gritty, Watchmen, we're so tortured, fuck me, I hate everything.
That's really good.
That worked in like 2009 or whatever, when like that hadn't really been experienced other than Frank Miller graphic novels and stuff. Now it's kind of been overdone, and I'm just kind of like, do we need all of that? I mean, even the X-Men 97 series is it's still a fun, lighthearted X-Men romp, but it's darker than the 90s series, because it has to be. It's evolved a little bit. Going this dark, I don't, for me, someone with superhero burnout, there's not a lot that appeals to me for this. And based on the animation style, I don't know. I get it. Animation can work better for this kind of format, but for me, if you're going to go from a live action franchise that's extremely successful to animation, you need to enter the Spider-Verse that shit and make it like crazy good animation and ridiculous production value and an experience the likes of which we'd never seen.
Again.
Right.
I think it's that same sort of pattern too, where it's like, well, that worked, so we should make it in animated form.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Sorry, I'm interrupting like crazy.
No, I'm curious about your thoughts too.
It's similar with The Boys, where I recognize its wonder, its splendor. It's amazing. It's a great, great show. But we were talking about it, how another season's coming out, and then they have all these future plans, and I was kind of like, it's like a Weird Al Yankovic song. Like they're incredible.
For the first
and great, yes,
verse and chorus,
but they have something to say and to make fun of and to parody and to have a tangent off of. And I feel like that's the same with Watchmen and The Boys. Like they work really well as, you know, comics, kind of self-contained comics, or a movie or a couple of seasons. But what you're doing is you're taking these existing tropes and you're kind of parodying it in different ways. I wouldn't call Watchmen a parody, but you have your Batman character and you have your Superman character with Dr. Manhattan and all that. And it's like you're exploring the kind of more gritty aspects of these existing franchises and existing tropes. But after a movie, after 2.5 hours of exploring this, you're just continuing to stretch out tropes that you're already kind of stretching out and exploring. It's like it's not an incredibly original thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a Weird Al, to me, a Boys season 5 feels like a Weird Al Yankovic album that's 100 songs.
Well,
like it's too much.
And especially because even the feedback on The Boys, which I love the show, I'm not caught up, but everybody is like, yeah, season 4 sucks. Like they're like, it completely falls off. The plot makes no sense. The character development is gone, because what you said, the idea of the character exists. It's sort of a tropey thing. And then when you try to drag that out for 5 seasons, there's no substance, you know?
And even Heroes. Remember that show Heroes on NBC?
Wow, yeah.
I was obsessed with that. Season 1 was amazing.
Everyone was.
Took the world by storm. Probably, it went like 4 full seasons, and they got worse and worse and worse. And I think The Boys writers are better. But even the hero characters were more original than the ones in The Boys, and they ran out of steam because it was still based off of existing tropes.
I think the pendulum, swings. Marvel right now, the pendulum has swung it has to come back eventually, but the Marvel verse is so light and poppy and comedy, and the DC verse, the pendulum swung and they took the gritty route, and they were
Watchmen did well.
well, and because Dark Knight did well, and
true.
Dark Knight Rises, and they were like, we did it, we found what we needed. But I totally agree that Watchmen, it's like, have you ever seen One Punch Man?
Yeah.
It's like that for anime. It's like Watchmen is the tropes. There's Dr. Manhattan, there's Rorschach, there's like the gritty street fighter and the all-powerful god-esque character. And not that Watchmen is like making fun of them like The Boys. I think The Boys leans way more into comedy.
That's more comedic for sure.
Yeah, Watchmen is like, no, this is just dark.
This is what it would be like in real life. These people existed.
This is the New York City, the grimy underbelly type of thing.
Yeah.
The Gotham, whatever.
Yeah.
But I agree in the same vein as like One Punch Man, where they made the second season, which I actually didn't even see, but the first season was so good and short because they were like, yep, we're making fun of the anime tropes. We're making fun of the superhero tropes. Here's this fucking guy.
That's the joke.
That's the joke. So I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. I don't have high hopes. I still need to see the new X-Men animated series. Like I haven't even dipped my toe into that yet, but I've heard it's good. Not mad about new animated stuff. I think if they made another live action show, I would be way more just like, what the fuck? Like, come on. But animated, I'm taking it with a little bit of salt, but I think I'll check it out.
Also, it's a pet peeve of mine, anything that titles itself episode 1 or chapter 1. We're gonna have a chapter 2, so you gotta like see. I don't know.
Everyone's got their opinion about bulk, just front loading and just doing all the episodes at once and then doing episodic releases.
I thought about this the other day.
What's your opinion on it?
It's bullshit.
Which one?
I don't know. The whole like episodic. Episodic releases in video games was such a flash in the pan. It worked really, really well for the Walking Dead video game. And then they tried it with a bunch of other franchises and it doesn't work.
Oh,
and
you mean for video games?
For video games, yeah. And I can't feel like it didn't fall flat on its face for a lot of those projects. Resident Evil Revelations 2, great game, but I think completely marred by being released in episodic structure.
Here's the thing. I think this also goes into my like ADD. There's plenty of games that I've looked into that have episodic releases, but I'm like, I am not gonna remember to check my Steam, to do whatever, to download the next episode the day it drops. For video games, different. TV shows,
well, it works with TV.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
And I've always preferred the old Netflix model of release it all at once and let me
decide
as an adult man decide
when I want to binge watch 8 episodes all in one sitting. And yes, Netflix, I am still watching. Thank you.
I recognize that most people prefer the episodic, like once a week an episode being released. It's like, okay, you're a little baby. Do you want a little airplane? Here comes the airplane spoon feeding you your episodes.
Sometimes I think stability and schedule is important.
That being said, if it means that I'm going to get the episodes earlier and the last episode would release when the whole thing would have dropped, then by all means, whatever. But the whole point I'm trying to make, Walking Dead, it worked really, really well for an episodic release. And there's another one, big one off the top of my head that I'm blanking on. But they did it with Sonic the Hedgehog 4. I was thinking about this the other day. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 had like episode 1 and 2. I don't even think they had an episode 3.
They don't have to do that.
No, and Sonic the Hedgehog 4, it was a good, not like amazing kind of retro Sonic title, but it was good, and I think it would have sold gangbusters if they marketed it as like Sonic the Hedgehog 4. That's a big fucking deal.
Part 1.
Sonic the Hedgehog 4 episode 1. Like, it sounds stupid, because it is stupid.
Also, if you only have 2 episodes, why'd you do that?
Oh my God. It worked for Walking Dead because it was kind of narrative based, and it's it's a graphic novel. And it's kind of the other one it worked great on, Strong Bad's Cool Game for Attractive People, was incredible. And each episode was its own self-contained point-and-click adventure in the Homestar universe. Fucking love that game.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It's so good.
That's so funny. I gotta look that up.
It's on PlayStation Plus.
Well, maybe we'll look it up because we gotta cut to our interview. We gotta talk to Chase. We've got Chase here.
Let's cut to the chase.
Let's cut to the chase. Fuck, why did I think of that?
Yeah!
We've got Chase here, who is a video game composer. I'm super, super excited to pick his brain, so stick around. We'll be talking with him next on
Next Level Play. We're back.
We're back, and things are a little different. Virtual, if you will. We have on headphones because we're talking through the World Wide Web.
I have sudden flashbacks to a few years ago. I don't remember what happened.
Oh, God, there was this weird thing that happened where we all talked to each other through computer screens.
Boozy days.
We're here with Chase, who is and I'm going to say renowned because it's true, award-winning video game music composer. He has done games like Aground, Deity Quest, a ton of games. Chase, do you want to...
We're here with Genius Chase.
Oh, this is a new... We're just throwing a lot of titles.
How do we say your last name? And please, yes, introduce yourself in your own words. No modesty allowed.
Thank you for asking. I've realized that I've got to do a new way of doing this. Well, first of all, Sydney, Marcus, thank you for having me on Next Level Play podcast. Really appreciate it. I'm Chase Bethea. That's Bethea.
Bethea.
Thank you. I got every time I say someone's name. My own last name is a confusing one. It's Amanuel with an A. Throws everybody off. But I get nervous every time I go to say someone else's last name because I'm like, I've been there. Don't mess this up, Sydney. Chase Bethea. If you would like to introduce yourself in your own words, I know we know you as a fantastic music composer and writer.
Maestro.
A maestro, if you will. I see you have your guitar behind you and some of your awards, but please tell us more about yourself.
Sure. So again, I'm Chase Bethea. I'm a multi-award winning video game composer. I've been working in games for 4,785 days. That means 13 years.
So the number. Love it. Yeah.
I've shipped over 25 games in my career thus far. I've done over 40 guest speaking talks in about a couple years, 2 years time, the GDC, PAX, Berklee College of Music, Game Devs of Color Expo, NAMM, and many more conventions and colleges. I've also been doing some live performances of my work and possibly, hopefully, be doing an Aground world tour one day soon, or at least like a local tour to beginning with. But had some of my work from Star Danner School for Witches, which is a soundtrack coming out very soon, being performed live, and other pieces from my work like Deity Quest at MagWest and being a special guest at MagFest as well. And that's mostly, in a nutshell, who I am.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
awesome.
Dude, huge congrats also. I mean, I feel like we didn't give you enough accolades. Congratulations. I hope you do go on a tour soon so we could maybe even have you in the studio IRL in New York. That would be a lot of fun.
And this is really...
That's my next step.
We got to hang out. And this is really a treat for Sydney and myself because not only are we fans of video games, we also have an occasional appreciation for music. So I mean, it feels like this is perfect. But I kind of want to take us all the way back, if you don't mind getting real nostalgic and indulgent. I'm sure you get these kinds of questions all the time, but we haven't yet interviewed a video game composer, so this is really cool. Music and video games, a huge part of our childhood, a huge part of most. Would you say that one of them was kind of sparked out to you as a passion at a very young age, or were they both kind of simultaneously callings to you in the video games and music?
I think they were definitely a simultaneous calling in its own retrospect. So the way that usually I tell it is that I've actually been writing game music, I think officially on the Game Boy camera, which is really the first selfie.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So when that came out, there was this area, there's this section in the game whereas you're supposed to pretend to be a DJ, but if you if you press select, it would go underneath like the hood, so to speak, and then you would just dial in your own type of rhythms and melodies based on the 2AO3 chip, which is the Game Boy. And so I was really where I was tinkering with that. I always listened to Final Fantasy Legend 2 sound tests on the Game Boy when I wasn't able, or I just like put it up. I was like my radio, even though the Game Boy actually even had like an FM radio too that plug in. So, but that was outside of like the game feeling. But I've always been around music, so the majority of the time. So when my mom was an actress, singer, and a dancer. My father got me an alto saxophone once I was around 8 years old. So I was playing saxophone from about 5th grade up to 7th grade. And I got tired of playing the music Hot Cross Buns and Concrete Rose and
BAG song.
yeah, I just started transcribing melodies from hearing things off of the smooth jazz station off of my memory. And I didn't know what manuscript paper was at the time. So I was just writing the letters, but I was doing it by ear. And I didn't really know that that was a thing to do. I was just trying stuff out. So eventually in 2001, then I got a computer. My mom had got me, and my aunt, and I wrote something on Hammerhead and Fruity Loops 3. And the first thing I took it to a bus stop. I burned it on a CD. I let this person I used to take the bus to go to school with listen to it. They said, it's cool. It sounds like it should be in a video game.
Hell yeah.
All right. Don't know what that means at the time. That's not what I was trying to achieve, but that was as early as the sound as it goes. So that's kind of where I guess the etymology and the beginnings of my signature sound had actually got formed.
That's so cool.
My God.
And I love that it's Game Boy. I feel like our timeline kind of lines up because, I had Game Boy Color growing up and the Game Boy camera. And I think, Mario Paint was kind of the first, at least console-based, music producing kind of software that a lot of people got their start on. That was a little before my time.
I would say, actually, KidPix, the drawing application on early computers, had a lot of sound effects when you painted.
Console specific, I was trying to say.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I mean, Mario Paint was like 92, 93, so that's like
That was early, yeah.
Yeah, it was
that was
old
early.
school. And I mean, Super Nintendo had a really great sound chip, but then you go to Game Boy, which was, I mean, I think, yeah, it had the stereo matrix sound that they advertised right on the Game Boy itself, but I think that audio was even a step below the NES, if I'm not mistaken. So really kind of rudimentary chiptune kind of education that you received, which is so cool.
It's incredible. I wonder if that too kind of influenced, oh God, and you said Fruity Loops, and that brings me back. I remember making beats on Fruity Loops is an achievement of its own. There's no grid lock, like you can't snap to anything. It's crazy.
It blows my mind too, because I had friends growing up where, they could hear a song and then play it on the piano. And it's like that level of, I don't know, my brain doesn't work that way. And I don't think most of the population does. So it's like, that is something it's a superpower. Like it honestly feels like a superpower. So.
But I wonder, Chase, do you think that did influence you starting with the Game Boy and kind of just like making music on it, not really thinking about it? Do you think that influenced your style, your early style in music making, that it was sort of like the chiptune-y, 16-bit sound, or was it different?
Well, I wasn't just playing Game Boy. I mean, I had been playing games since I was 6. So by the time I was 8, I was figuring out the music style of what this kind of was. But in the same time, my father had a PlayStation. My best friend Afosa had the Sega Genesis and Sega Game Gear. So I was hearing, blast processing and hearing the chipset style of the YM2612 in its full glory through pieces that Yuzo Koshiro done from Beyond Oasis to Streets of Rage, but then hearing Nathan's score from the Tomb Raider 1996 on PlayStation. So I'm hearing full-blown orchestral music now being implemented. So I got the whole gamut pretty early. It's just of accessibility in terms of what game music could do in its time. And so I think the influences of all those three, the Game Boy, the Sega Genesis, and the PlayStation was really, I guess, the earliest influence to understand what the signature sound would be.
Yeah, and that really does kind of run the gamut, as you said, because you have, very, very simple kind of sound chip or board. I don't know what I'm talking about. And then Genesis, obviously a big step, from Game Boy, not as much as Super Nintendo, but then you have, again, PlayStation 1, which is full-on CD quality sound, is the whole selling point of the PlayStation.
To go to a disc is such a jump
where you can put any music that exists basically onto your game.
And man, the Tomb Raider soundtrack was just, that's such a beautiful one to like have in your brain at such a young age.
And I'm curious, you kind of talked about how your friend said, hey, this should be in a video game, and you kind of were like, ooh, it feels like a light bulb moment almost a little bit. I'm curious, we talked about this a little bit in today's episode, that video game music specifically, I think, has its own kind of quirks. I don't think it, necessarily should be designed. Again, I'm no expert. But there's a level of replayability with video game music, because say it's your level 1 music, it's going to be played again and again and again. There's like a hypnotic level to it that feels a little bit of a tangent from, I guess, your traditional music composing. in your words, would you say that there is a difference between video game music and kind of wider music, or how would you kind of describe what video game music specifically is?
Normally, when I submit my soundtracks to be pushed through the aggregator to be on the platforms of Spotify and Dora and Tidal and YouTube, they always try to ask, like, what genre is this and
Mm-hmm.
what is this and where does it fit? And the reason I got into video game music is because it was genre less. You could make it whatever you want. And so when I, like I said, growing up with all the consoles, I forgot one I also had was the N64. So knowing that the Super Mario theme is inspired by reggae, and even on the Game Boy Camera, there were some reggae type of themes. And then hearing the orchestral piece from the Tomb Raider soundtrack, but then hearing a rock and roll theme from Earthworm Jim on Sega Genesis and
Mhm.
things, you're hearing the entire spectrum of all genres and any style that comes with it. And what's great about video game music is that it is all genres. It can be an amalgamation of genres because as games have evolved over the time, they start conflating as well. You have an RTS, but it's a top down. If you got a rogue-like platformer you see what I'm saying? So there are different pieces that amalgamate in its own right, which makes sense that the music would do the same. And so that's what I really appreciate is that it it is all genres at any point in time, if it can be. If it's not specifically in one track, it's within the soundtrack itself. You're going to get an ambient, and then you're going to get the boss battle, which is not going to be the ambient necessarily in that part, because it just really comes down to what I guess you and the development team we discuss and we decide to put in for the player to experience. But yeah, I feel and always have believed that video game music is just all genres at any time.
Very
That's
cool.
that's incredible too, because I feel like, for most musicians who go on tour and, make albums, and that's their money making, put an album out, then tour the album. It's really hard to genre bend, because especially when you're signed to a label, it's like, okay, you are our pop person and you're going to do the whole pop gambit. We're going to have you do these like costumes and this album art and et cetera, et cetera. And I wonder, as a musician that didn't take that route and you went into video games, do you feel more free? Like, it sounds like from your experience, you kind of get the best of all worlds. You could make like a reggae track, and then the next week you could be making an orchestral boss battle track, or does it feel also harder because the world gets so much bigger and the options become endless, and then it's like, well, how do you choose then?
It's definitely a amalgamation of both, and only from the freeing aspect is that I can write what I want. The flip side is that what does that sound like? And that, because you've been doing it so long, like 13 years, I'm trying to just write better than my previous self, I'm trying to also write something new that doesn't exist, not because I have to, but because that's what I believe the game is calling for. And then on now doing more performances and bookings, trying to book these things, the, the music industry is so focused on what genre what's going to sell tickets. So now I've got to present something that's new, but they're not sure if the audience will catch, but it will because it's kind of already been done. So I've got to show them. And so it's kind of like this push and pull. It's good, it's fresh, it's freedom, but I've also got to convince and cajole some of the folks who don't understand it, what it can be and how successful it really is.
Makes sense. And I feel like we talk to a lot of different people in the industry, different parts of the video game industry, and a pattern that I think I've recognized is gaming has exploded obviously in the last 20, 30 years, but there's still all these parts of the industry that are still kind of being figured out, that are based off of other industries. And in one aspect, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, video games, but it's still the wild west, I feel, in terms of like video game law. We had a lawyer on the last couple of episodes, and there's not a lot of lawyers out there who specialize in video games. And obviously we're not, it's not 2004, but I still feel like there's still an element of you're a pioneer, you know, you're kind of trailblazing this industry still. What a video game composer is, a musician within the world of video games, it's still kind of being formed by individuals such as yourself. Um, that wasn't really a question. That was just kind of an observation.
And what is that like?
Yeah, feel free to speak on that. But I guess my big question is, when you do work on a video game, is it one of those things where they look at your body of work and say, hey, we want you, and then they say, this is the feel that we're going for, create a soundtrack? Or do they give more specific instructions? Like, do they give you line readings? Hey, I want it to be like do 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 something like that. Or is it something where you need to compose a little bit of music and give kind of a sample and like audition and say, hey, this is what I'm going to make? How does that process work exactly? And what the hell? I mean, how is that business side of what you do? How the fuck does it work, is what I'm asking, basically.
I want to go back to say thank you for acknowledging me as being a pioneer in this space. I believe the majority of the work that I do is on a lot of multiple indie small team games, small studio teams. And so I feel like it's still kind of not necessarily a Wild West, but they're still figuring things out. So I appreciate that. Thank you. What does it work? What does it sound like? What is the business like? I'm definitely going to dive in.
That's a big question. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's all right. It's all right. I typically don't get sought out as much as you think. I've got to do a heavy amount of marketing myself, and I've learned to kind of just do that as best as my ability can be. But I've worked with Fancy Fish for the majority of their games. We're now working with Sprite Wrench and for a few of their titles, and for the continue on for more, and a fair amount of other developers. But normally I would have to pitch myself for the majority of the time. And then maybe it would have to do, depending on the developer, it would be like a sample that I would have to do. My very first game that I did when I read the book Complete Guide to Game Audio by Aaron Marks, I read half of the book and then I went on the Game Developer Forum and I pitched my work. I didn't hear anything from 2 developers until I landed the gig with Electron Flux and wrote an extra demo just to kind of get them the sound that I could do it. So it's sometimes things like that. Some developers will ask for a sample. I believe now, though, especially with the body of work that I've done, almost like 15 soundtracks and all different styles, and being known as not a self-proclaimed, but from a different podcast that have acknowledged the type of genres that I've been able to achieve as being the Swiss Army knife for video game composition, that work should speak for itself. And so demoing, I know that some AAA composers still do if they have an agent. I don't. So I feel like I make my demo reel. I also have all this work of things that I've done. Take a listen if you'd like to work with me. I'm fun. I know games. We can collaborate. The business side of it has been the most interesting aspect of it, because what I brought into the industry when I came in is I brought a level of professionalism that was already pretty standard, I believe, and I'm really great with communication. I meet milestones. I'm efficient. I mean, what I came into, I was able to write a track per week.
Wow.
And at that time, I think when they were coming in, that wasn't happening. Sorry. Yes, that is the thing. But when I actually came in, I was writing 3 tracks a day. So it was actually faster. Now it's mostly kind of like around that, or a little bit more, depending on what the developer is looking for, the styles and things like that. But yes, when I entered the industry 13 years ago, I was able to write 3 tracks a day, easy, minute to 3 minutes, no problem.
That seems crazy.
So,
is that like a standard? That seems like a lot to me.
It's not a standard. It's just the practice of time. I remember I was writing music since. I understood music at an early age. I was band, alto saxophones. Then I started on the computer from writing music around 2001. So by the time 2011 happens, like I've been writing every day. So I just got more efficient. But I was also working at an internet media company that was kind of in that demand for writing these different visual platforms. There was like a sports section, and then there was a romantic section that they were doing content for, and then there was some news sections, and there was all these things. So I had to be able to deliver at a high capacity. So when I got into games and was able to do that, that's the level I was able to present. However, what I discovered with the business is that a lot of them run away from it. And what I've discovered recently is that this industry is run on fear. They're very fearful about, you're going to take my idea, you're going to steal this, you're not going to do that. And think about like NDAs and litigations and things that have come about. They're not very educated in terms of how things flow, in terms of having a lawyer, and now that it won't necessarily cost you this much, and that it's just, there's so much roadblocks that occur. And then when you get into like hiring a composer, my very first talk that I did was at GDC Lost Levels, hot ass room, 200 people upstairs, and just everyone crowded. And I remember raising my hand and I said, how many people want to work with a video game composer? And the majority of them raised their hand and said, how many people know how? And all the hands mostly dropped. And I said, well, what was the resistance? And a lot of people saying, it's like, well, we don't know what things charge, what costs. And so what comes down to is it's not just fear, it's just then the other F is funding. And funding it's very competitive. And with systems that have come out of place, with curations being on Steam, not having the green light, and all the floodgates just opening, it causes, you've got to really be good at a certain level. So then you have these developers who want to do this full time, but don't know the business of how to get funding. And then they see all these things and they get overwhelmed. And then you see the rates that are abound and there. And so there's imbalance. Then you have the AAA studios who want to buy these other studios, but they're not sure how to go about it. So it's just, there's no system. And there's all this lights and glitz and glamour in their eyes, thinking like, oh, I want to be like Jonathan Blow, or I want to be the next Celeste type of game, but not knowing that you didn't take the proper steps to go forward to learn the business side before you get to the creative side. And this is a tale of time. Even with musicians, we hear about this with label deals, and they just want to write the music, but then they get screwed over by managers and so on and so forth. So fear is the problem in the industry. And if they could just get over that, start educate, what overcomes fear is education. The more you learn about something, the less of that can get subsided, then the love and the passion will come through, which is what I came into it with. And emboldening yourself with that to have the proper knowledge to be able to get to the creative part. Handle your business first so you can have the fun later.
But you said something that just kind of, I don't know, it was news to me. Are you telling me that work ethic and professional competence of the field is important for success? And also passion for the industry? That's crazy. Exactly. I've been doing it wrong, Sydney. I've been doing it wrong. No, I mean, that's incredible. And I don't know, I've been kind of on the fringes of, higher levels of the industry, not involved as talent because I'm not there. But I've been involved in that, and it never ceases to amaze me how much, working hard and having passion, it's the true work ethic and true passion. It's like rare on every level in the world. It really is. And when you have that work ethic and that passion, I'm not trying to be on a soapbox, but like you will do well if you truly motivate yourself and like, I don't know, 3 songs a day, that's fucking crazy and you're a madman, but that's awesome. And it's like, you work hard and you prove yourself, and it's just so fucking cool. I don't know.
I also really love the sentiment that you mentioned, Chase, that, fear, the way to remove fear is through knowledge. And I think that is absolutely true and so important. And not only for, your CEOs and your creative directors and whoever is, in the studio end of the video game, who then has to be, the liaison to the music composer and the voice actors and their producers and etc. But I think it's also really important if you want to become a composer for video games, learn about the industry. Right. It's the street goes both ways. And I just want to say, like, it's really also enlightening and heartening to hear, because I'm sure we have a lot of viewers who want to be VO actors in video games and write music for video games, and that's their dream. And it's really heartening to hear that you put in the work and you are achieving so much. Because I think people, I don't know, there's a lot of nepo baby stuff in the industry, and people aren't really sure. Everything is so hush hush. Like you said, everything is like, oh, we don't want to talk about that. NDAs, behind closed doors, behind closed curtains. And it's really cool to hear you speak candidly. And you're like, yeah, no, I pitched myself multiple times and I didn't hear back from some people and I heard back from some other people. And I'm curious too, just from that side of it with the pitching, as a musician, do you work on obviously you're working all the time, but do you have a library of stuff where you're just like labeling like, sci-fi question mark demo number 7, or like epic battle music number 321, and then you keep those in a file until an opportunity presents itself, and then you're like, oh yeah, I have this thing that would be perfect. Is that the way that you work personally, or is it different?
It depends. It's mostly case by case from the development team or the game that is in question. And so, yes, I do have a library, and I definitely have those for license for those that are not able to afford like the custom fee, because I know the ranges of me understanding and educating myself business of like, all right, they're not going to have the funding, they'll come out of pocket, they can afford these type of things that'll work for this. And if they want to have a conversation and possibly be able to sit at the table and negotiate properly, then we can go from there. And so that is available because I know what the business is like. I know what I educated myself to understand where they are and where they fit into the range of the system. And so and I think it's really good to have that for people who at least are interested in to work with me, but are not able to do it just yet based on whatever the circumstances of the studio or the small team or the budgets they may have.
So then run me through also, let's say, the red tape has been cut and you've talked to the studio and you've signed your NDAs and they're like, yes, we want you. You agree on the fee. It's all the perfect, the stars are aligning. What's that next step for when you guys start talking like brass tacks about the sound that they want? Do they leave it up to you and you come back like with certain tracks or like base level stuff, and then they're like, okay, actually sprinkle this in? Like, how many revisions? Is that all in a contract? Like, it's got to be crazy.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit more simple, and especially once you get into a rhetoric and a flow of how it kind of goes, then it's mostly right. So the revisions are definitely in the contract. I have my own opinions about that I'll just, I guess, briefly talk about now. Revisions are good to have a confined marker for.
Yes.
They are not bad, but they're not good past a certain limit, a certain part. And so I usually would put, depending on how I can get a feel for how the development team may or may not be. And this comes from when I have a specific thing that I send to developers when I work with them, is how to work with a composer, and it's 4 pages. It breaks down what we do in terms of discovery call. Then they'll go over the audio asset list sheet of everything that they mostly need, because they typically will know what kind of music they have. They have things called reference tracks or placeholders. And then it talks about then contract in terms of the terms of what we'll go over based on if they want to negotiate. If they do have a publisher that comes involved and has more funding, or if they already have the publisher, what is the fee? What is it going to be? The milestone schedules, if they're trying to hit Next Fest or PAX West or any other convention that they want to hit to have the music be able to have a solid demo for the player base. And then the other things in terms of soundtrack rights and royalties, if that's something that's in there, and then getting started in terms of what the sound mostly be, which again is also in the asset list. So the revisions in my mind are they don't surpass like 3 or 4 or 5. And they can be good because I remember that it's a collaborative effort. Video games is a conflation of all art disciplines. You have the writing, you have level design, you have technical design, you've got sound, you've got music, you've got programming, which is an art in itself in terms of how they do things. I mean, ASCII is brilliant in terms of like, that's just an art. I believe in that programming language. You can get that together.
Yeah.
And so with that revision, it's like, this is a collaborative art form. They're making something better. But if it starts out the way that the revision started from the beginning, where they were like, no, I don't want this, and it begins to the same way that it was, or I was able to nail in, oh, this is what you want from this one revision, and we get down the line, one, it's going to cost them because that is time we're taking away from kind of hitting the milestones for things, and that's not going to be beneficial to the development workflow. So there's a cap, but I also see it as a plus. I don't mind them, but I also have been through this a bunch of times, whereas and you just end up working with people when they think they know what they want, but they don't, and they don't. Asking someone, what do you want, is usually not the best approach.
Yeah.
The best approach is asking them, what do you not want? Because when you get to all the don't wants, you eventually get to what you do want.
Yeah.
And it's something a lot of people don't really remember or think about too much. That's the part of revisions. In terms of the workflow from everything there, they may leave it to me if they trust me. Most of the time, if they're coming to me at this point in my career, they mostly trust that I know how to do. I've probably sent them a sample. They love work that I've done in previous games. So they trust to know that I have that sound. And I respect that. However, I am not naive. I'm not green. I do create, if they don't have that audio asset list, and say, hey, this is what it looks like. Here's a template. This is what you need to fill in. This is what you need to say in the description. I like drums at timestamp this, but don't like instrument X at timestamp that. It's very laid out so that they understand, they're not overwhelmed, they know what they're looking for. And then all I do is just listen and then break down my musical sense of, okay, this is what they did like, this is what they're looking for, this is that instrument, this is that key, this is that chord, and so I just start breaking it down from there, and then usually just deliver what I believe it is. And most of the time I'm delivering without many revisions. In terms of revisions that I've had in my career, between all developers, I'm around 8.
Wow.
Love that. I mean, that's crazy. That's only 8 revisions. I have that many with like one audiobook. I'll have that one chapter of one audiobook I've done in the past. Requested revisions.
It's tricky though. I mean, you make a great point that I think people forget. It is a collaboration. Ultimately, everyone wants to make the best thing possible, but it's that, like you need those interpersonal skill sets as well, and like the language, and 1,000%, like a video game level designer or the creative director of character design doesn't understand the language of a musical composer. So you gotta bridge that gap, and it's amazing. You speak about it so positively. It's refreshing.
Well, and I love your answer on that too, because my biggest passion in this world is movies. Really, I mean, I'm happiest when I'm on a movie set. I'm obsessed with filmmaking, every single part of it. And when people ask me what do you love the most about making movies, I have the exact same answer. I say it's the ultimate collaborative process. You have all these incredibly creative visions that converge, and you all trust each other, but you also help to enhance that vision, and you're working, and you have the director to kind of unify those visions. And I'm a squirrel brain boy. My man's all over the place, so I love acting because I can just focus on my role and my relationship with the other characters, while also, third eye, kind of knowing what the lighting looks like and what the angles are and everything. And then I'm trusting all of these other, experts in the field, your set designers, your lighting designers, your cinematographers. And then when you see the finished product of all of these visions coming together, it's magic. I mean, movies are magic, and video games are the same thing, where it's this ultimate collaborative process that just becomes magic. And being a part of that is, to me, I'm being very indulgent, but the most fulfilling thing ever. And we're running out of time. I would love to dive in tomorrow if you'll come back.
I have a million more questions. I wanted to piggyback off of that, but I'm like, we have no time.
I especially want to, really dive into how you view the video game music industry, what your favorite kind of soundtracks are in the past, the video games that you started playing as a child.
But hold that thought.
I have one last question. First of all, I was, singing your praises about your work ethic, and because I think it's just so important, and for me, I think it's even more rare than talent. But obviously, you're incredibly talented, and you clearly realize that at a young age.
Okay, Marcus, do you have a question, or are you just complimenting Chase?
For those maybe younger or young-ish viewers, or not even young, even old viewers who are like, hey, I have this talent and this passion for video games and music. And as succinctly as you can, because I ramble, what advice would you give to people who are like, hey, I have this talent and passion for this. What if I want to pursue this professionally?
Don't think, just do it.
Yeah.
And keep doing your own thing.
Fucking love that.
Chase, I thought you were about to say, don't. And I was like, whoa, he was so positive before. What happened?
So just take that jump as your advice. I love that so much.
I love that. You are so positive. All right, well, can you talk to us tomorrow? Will you come back for a second interview? We would love to talk with you more.
Yes.
Okay.
Chase, how can we find your stuff?
Yeah, please plug yourself. Let humbleness leave the room.
Not allowed.
Give me a listen, give me a follow on Spotify. I know I'm positive, but Spotify is doing some weird stuff. Whereas if you don't get 1,000 streams in 1 year, they're going to give your music to your money to someone else. So I would love a follow from the listeners, and that if you follow on YouTube, both of my channels, I have a music channel, I have my special channel where I break down how I write different music for the games that I do and how I compose it. Those would be great to have there. You can listen to my music on any platform, of course. Doesn't matter, Deezer, Tidal, Amazon, any of those platforms that you wish. And you can find me if you're a developer, you'd like to talk more, at least to see what that is like. You can go to chasebethea.com, Bethea. And I do have some performances happening in the fall and hopefully in the future year. And I'm writing a book as well. So it's going to be talking about how I've navigated game audio the past decade.
Stick around. We have our tier list coming up next on Next Level Play.
Don't cry. I got some sick beats to cheer you up.
Oh, awesome.
I don't actually
hit that funky jam.
I don't have. Well, Funky Jam was my nickname in high school. So. All right, what we're gonna do? Video game soundtracks.
Yes, we're gonna stick more with like classics.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot.
There's a
lot of video game soundtracks. So we're gonna split this up into today's episode and tomorrow's. Tomorrow's. We're gonna start with the classic soundtracks a little more.
Okay.
My style.
Yeah, I know. I feel like you're gonna have a lot to say. Oh boy, buckle up. Am I right?
What else is new?
Well, let's do what I think probably is one of the most iconic classic ones, if I dare say.
Okay.
Little Pocket Monsters.
Pokemon.
Yeah. I just feel like the battle music, like, I don't know. It's also sound design, of the different, I don't know, arenas and then like the different Pokemon.
It's very solid, and it's stripped down. What they could do on the Game Boy by 1998 was very impressive.
Those, whatever, I can't even think of like the intro to the battle music, but like the dun 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 dun. I can't replicate it.
It's 96 if you're going back to Red
Yeah.
and Green Japan.
OG.
Yeah. I mean, these are songs. There's different songs every town, the battle theme.
I feel
you
like
gotta listen to it 80 million times per game, so
Yes.
it better be decent.
I'm tempted to put it in S because it is one of the most well known, but I don't know if it's the best soundtrack. It's hard to judge,
I think we should start conservative just because there's a lot of
Let's do A.
I'll do an A, and I'll throw another in A. This might be a little controversial because it's so iconic. I'm gonna put Mario music as A.
Only A?
Because I want to leave room for S. There's a couple that I think, two in particular, I have S's in my brain. I'll put it as an A, and music is more tied with Mario than I think people even realize, especially with like the new Super Mario Brothers series and Super Mario Wonder. The music itself, and some of the best Mario Maker levels, you see this too. The music is literally part of the gameplay.
Yeah.
You'll have the little Koopas do a little like da da da, and then like do a little extra step. I don't know. It's so much fun. You don't really realize how much that upbeat music kind of fuels that gameplay. There's so many iconic tracks that are remixed again and again and again, from the 1-1 theme, the 1-2 theme, to Super Mario 3, to Super Mario World, to Super Mario 64, which we talked to our guest about, the reggae influences in Super Mario 64, and then, the more islandy themes of Sunshine and epic Galaxy-esque. It goes on and on. Mario's music's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it is shadowed a little bit by some other Nintendo franchises, but I want you to take the next one.
Okay, I'm gonna pick one that I don't know if you're familiar with. It might be a deep cut, but I feel like for those who had PlayStation growing up, they might know this one very well. Okami.
Oh, okay.
Okami is a game, an action adventure
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
You play as like a wolf
Yeah.
spirit that
That's
helps.
a little more modern. That's like 2006. But
Was it?
like, yeah.
I thought it was. Oh, you're right. It is 2006.
But we won't talk about it tomorrow. It's all good.
Oh, I thought it was early. Okay, well, I wanted to include it because it has such beautiful sound design and such beautiful music. I've actually recently replayed it. I bought the physical. I still have my PS2, and I bought the physical disc off eBay.
Nice.
And I was like,
I had the Wii version.
oh,
So, yeah.
no way. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it came out on Wii too.
Yeah, because you can do like the.
Oh, the painting.
Mhm.
I wish I had it
It's
on
great.
Wii.
It's
Oh, I
great
wish
on
I had a Wii. I just think it's really, really it's special in my heart, and I think it deserves to be. See, it's like it's not as iconic.
See?
No, I think it deserves to be higher than a B, but I feel like it is not on par with Mario. But I'll put it in a B.
Okay, I think that's safe, and I think
yeah.
that's fair.
It's got some really beautiful musical motifs.
I don't think we'll be really ranking any bad video game soundtracks here, so it's tough that things are going to get below a B here. This is all just going to be a lot of praise.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about what I think is one of my S's, and Okami is viewed as a clone sometimes of the play style of this franchise.
Which?
Legend of Zelda.
No.
3D Zelda clone. I've seen Okami described as. Yeah, you get.
Why? Because you're saving a village?
I mean, because you kind of
from a dark creature that emerged from a cave because somebody accidentally let it out.
It's an adventure where you build your arsenal like an RPG, but it's more through like getting more equipment and getting more health and kind of similar overworld and
you paint
dungeon type.
You paint your roads and connections.
Yeah,
to be able to
it's kind of like your ocarina
travel.
Anyway, Zelda is an S to me.
Yeah.
I think the Zelda music transcends Mario music. When I was a kid and I had Mario 1 and 3 and I had Zelda on NES, that overworld theme was the one that I was playing in my head. I'll give 1, 2 the edge over the dungeon theme of the original Legend of Zelda. But regardless, Legend of Zelda music got even better and better and better as it evolved. Link to the Past, the songs that were made in Link to the Past evolved into the main themes of Ocarina of Time and future 3D Zeldas and still just fucking hold up so well. I mean, you can hear them in your head right now. And then they really integrated music into the actual gameplay in a more direct way than Mario did with the instruments that you get.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to the flute from original Zelda, where you could warp around. Do, 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 do. Same.
God, I love Zelda music.
Same motif as Mario 3. Anyway, regardless, Zelda's an S. I could talk about it all day.
I agree. You know. It's hard, you know, like when you said Mario at first, I was like A tier, but man, it's like apples to oranges. Zelda soundtrack to the Mario soundtrack. I could listen.
They're close.
I could listen to the Zelda soundtrack though, like on repeat and while I'm doing tasks. I don't think I would put on the Mario soundtrack for that.
Yeah. And just for the sake of being harsh, I will put Kirby in a strong B.
Okay.
Low A, because I mean the Kirby tracks, it's apples to oranges as you're saying, and I'm just saying my opinion. I didn't really grow up with Kirby games as much, and I would hear those songs mostly through Smash Brothers. But amazing tracks, and just not quite up to the level of Mario and Zelda personally.
I want to ask. It's not on the list, but I think it should be because you mentioned it. Tetris. Where would you put? It's hard. It's got 3 songs.
Yeah.
So can you call it a soundtrack? I'm not sure.
Right, and that's not even the most iconic Tetris theme, which the Tengen version has. Amazing tracks, but the fact that they're classical works of music that are reworked to chiptune, which had never really, I mean, it had been done, but didn't reach the popularity that it had before then. Just because they're not original songs
knocks it down.
I want to be harsh and give it, again, strong B, low A.
Okay.
But I mean, Tetris, the music
Tetris.
made Tetris.
Yeah.
And even the Game Boy one, it's like, people love that shit. It's great, but
I also want to throw, and this one could be too modern, and that's okay. But the first Tomb Raider. Chase was talking about the Tomb Raider soundtracks, and I know it's different when you jump from like 16-bit sound to disc. You can have a full range of sound. I was obsessed with the Tomb Raider games early on. We had a PlayStation, and I loved playing Tomb Raider. I not only love the character design and the mechanics of the game, as simple as they were and polyhedral as they were, the music really invited you into the world of Lara Croft and just like the cave sounds, the water, like, I don't know. It was the first time I felt very immersed in game sound.
Sure.
When you go underwater, and that's more sound design, but the soundtrack still, I think, holds up. And in fact, I'm probably going to listen to it when I go home today on my commute home, just to get that like shot of nostalgia. I'm going to put it in B.
Okay.
Just because off the top of my head, I cannot think of a song off of it the way I can with some other games.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would be remiss not to put it on our tier list.
I love that. I'm going to quick throw out my other S.
Yeah.
Which is Nintendo published, but not developed. Donkey Kong Country series.
Oh, you got it. You got it.
I mean, those songs, I think they took like the fun kind of Mario-esque platformer music to keep you motivated and positive, but just
then
better.
brutally,
just better.
But then brutally beat you down with the hard gameplay.
Oh, but then we get the bongos in the background.
Yeah, the bongos.
It's like you feel like you're in the jungle. You feel like you're exploring a temple, and
the beat picks up, and
it's the best music on the Super Nintendo. And man, speaking of Super Nintendo, I'll throw Final Fantasy III in particular.
I was going to say, we have to mention at least one of the Final Fantasy games.
Just for the opera scene alone,
okay.
I think it is so iconic for its time.
Obviously, 7 and 10 are in there too. Don't stop yelling. Stop yelling.
I'll put it as an A,
awesome.
And I'm not a huge Final Fantasy guy, but I've heard great things about their music.
The music is amazing.
I'm sure it's consistently pretty solid. I think A is fair.
And do one more because we're running low on time.
Oh boy, I have so many that I want to talk about. So many classic Nintendo franchises like Star Fox, F-Zero. Those are all right with Kirby, like high B, low A. I would put, just in a little different vein, away from original soundtracks. And this could be considered modern, but the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series.
Oh, how could
especially the first two, which were 99, like 2000 era.
Yeah, even Tony Hawk Underground, Pro Skater Underground.
Yeah, yes.
All bangers.
Yes, they chose great songs.
Yeah,
it's like with the Madden games, I feel like they have 1 or 2 good songs, and then
the rest
a bunch
are like,
of filler.
I don't know what these are.
And with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 especially, because that's what I grew up with.
That's what I grew up with too.
I mean, Bring the Noise by Public Enemy is still one of my favorite songs.
To some songs.
Yes.
Like I became aware of some musicians.
And, like Anthrax, I wouldn't have known who it was if it wasn't for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Public Enemy, I would have known. I mean,
probably, me too.
Which
and
is,
also,
Flavor of Love helped with that.
So fun to just be skating around and like then the radio switches and you get a new
I am doing all the things I can. Oh my god, it's so. I think that was.
As I get a huge combo.
Yes.
As I slap posters and stickers on the walls.
Freeze! How low can you go? Oh my god, it's so good. I want to listen to it right now.
I have Tony Hawk. I think I have Underground at home. Maybe I'll go play it.
I got the when they did 1 and 2 HD.
Oh, I wanted to get that. I didn't get it.
No,
yet.
there's the HD one, which was a shitty port that everyone hated, but I loved it because I don't give a fuck. Well, yeah, I was just so thirsty for Tony. How did this become a Tony Hawk conversation?
I know. Now we're just, hey, Tony Hawk, if you're listening, we love your games, I guess.
But then they re-released 1 and 2, which are solid for a remake or re-release. But
we have to put a pin in this, though. We're going to continue with this list and do some more modern games.
We're gonna lean more modern, even though there's.
But we could come back to this.
We really should.
I'm not over it, and this is really invigorating my spirit to like just listen to some soundtracks on the way home.
We didn't talk about Mega Man 2. We didn't talk about
Stick around.
Castlevania.
The episode is not over.
Both
we
A's.
have our final segment coming up. Post-market news with Samurai, where he will. Oh, he's going to predict a true statement.
Can't we just do this for a little longer?
We can't.
Instead?
We already
Just tell
booked.
him to
We
go
already
home?
booked him. We already booked him. He's literally behind that door. What is it? Samurai, did you just see something?
I've got one of my visions. It's come to me. It's come to me. I have one of the visions.
Welcome back to Next Level Play, where we make bold predictions about the future, particularly in our final segment, Post-Market News with Samurai, who makes the boldest
I think Samurai
of the predictions.
I think Samurai just saw something, Marcus.
Must have seen something.
It's come off the press. I have a prediction. I need to tell you guys.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you guys. I gotta tell you guys right now.
Please do.
Now is the time.
I'm gonna forget it if I don't. Wait.
It's the
wait,
segment.
Where'd it go? Wait,
No.
Wait. Oh, no. Oh, wait. Oh, there it is. Okay. My prediction today.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch 2. Everyone's talking about the Switch 2. What's going to be in the Switch 2? What games are going to be on the Switch 2? What's the hardware going to be like? What's happening with the Switch 2? I've just seen the future and I know a critical component of what is going to be happening with the Switch 2.
You have to tell the people. They're dying to know.
This information could be dangerous. This information might be classified. We might get a cease and desist from the President of the United States of America.
We'll protect you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know you will. I know you will. My prediction today, the Nintendo Switch 2 will feature 2 critical design components. A beautiful OLED screen in the base model.
Okay.
As well as no controller at all. Because the controller you will use with the Switch 2, the only compatible controller, will be a leftover nunchuck from the Wii. Nintendo knows you have one in the closet. They know you have a tangled nunchuck at the bottom of the closet.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is. It's in a drawer.
Why waste valuable plastic? Why waste materials when you could just use that beautiful nunchuck, break it out again?
First question.
Start chucking.
Yeah, first question. So the Switch is meant to be a handheld device, a handheld gaming device.
Right.
So now with the nunchuck as the controller, is it attached to the OLED screen? So you're like whipping the screen around, or?
You will place the screen down on the little kickstand.
Okay, so not handheld.
Well, it's handheld till you put it down. And then you will have the nunchuck and you'll have to chuck at the game. The game's here, you chuck at the game.
Yeah, yeah, but you see what I'm saying, where like the point of the Switch is like, you can lay in bed and like play, or like you can get on a train.
I see where you're getting hung up.
In public.
I see where you're getting hung up.
Right.
Let me just quell anything you got going on. That was the Switch. This is the Switch 2.
Right.
For the Switch 2, we're gonna hunker down. We're gonna bring gaming back where it belongs, inside. In your basement, in the dungeon, in the den, with the lights off, nunchuck out, pants off, nunchuck out, playing the Switch 2.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like, I'm not bringing the nunchuck in public.
No, the nunchuck can never go in public. You'll be arrested.
Yeah, I don't think I'm allowed.
No, it's illegal. Been illegal since 2008.
I was looking up overall lifetime sales of nunchuck controllers. I just don't see, it's a wired controller you're plugging into the Wiimote. So, like, what are you plugging
or
in?
Or is it wireless?
Plugging it? No, same controller.
It's the same controller. It's literally the same controllers. He's saying that we all have.
You plug it into there'll be a port. You plug it into the back of the Switch.
Why not just whip out our old? Oh God, why did I phrase it that way? Our old NES controllers and zappers, and like use that as part of the Switch.
Because to Nintendo's knowledge, the Wii sales were good. They were fairly recent, and the nunchuck is cool. It's named after a samurai weapon.
That's what this is about. I'm pretty sure it's a samurai weapon. What is nunchucks? That's a good question, actually.
I'm gonna have
Samurais didn't use nunchucks though. I'm positive on that.
This samurai did.
Okay.
You know
I'm gonna have to give this a dope on the Simpson scale. I just don't. I'm sorry, Samurai. I just don't see it.
We started out with a little hum there, and I'm gonna give this a Marge.
We hummed on it, Sydney. We hummed.
That's good. Yeah, I thought we would be really like zen and in tune, but I'm not feeling the harmony.
One day, you'll see. You'll see the way. You'll get the clarity. You'll get the gift.
I guess we will, since all your predictions do come true.
100% accuracy.
For better or for worse.
100% accuracy.
Well, Samurai, I guess we'll have to wait until you have a hopefully better prediction on the next episode of Next Level Play. So thanks so much for sticking around to the end for our post-market news segment. Thank you, Samurai.
Yeah, it was a very good nunchucks prediction. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your time watching our delightful podcast. We will be back with more bold predictions, more great guests, more hotly debated topics.
More humming. I don't know.
I'm having so much fun.
We'll see you guys next time.
Whoa, I'm chucking so good. Whoa.